What's up, YouTube? It is day 2 of my 30-day challenge, posting every day on YouTube for 30 days, Q&A style. Any questions you have, workout, nutrition, strength training, cardio, mindset, business, whatever. Any questions you want, post them, or actually tweet them to me at Syatt Fitness, S-Y-A-T-T Fitness, and I'll answer them as many as I can in the next 30 days. All right, so the things that I want to talk about today are, I actually wrote them down, let's see. First question came from Lindsay Vincent on Twitter. She said, what is your perspective on gaining weight while weight training? How much is appropriate to gain, if any? Which is a really good question. I'm excited that you asked, Lindsay. And like everything, it always depends, right? That's like the most generic answer, but it's true, it depends. And the first and foremost thing that it depends on is where you're starting out in terms of your body composition. If you already have a lot of weight to lose, if you're already a relatively high body fat percentage, then odds are you shouldn't really be gaining much, if any, weight. That doesn't mean your weight won't fluctuate. It will. As you're losing weight, there will be fluctuations up and down, that's fine. But I mean, in terms of month to month, your weight should not be going up if you have a lot of weight to lose. It should consistently be going down the higher body fat you are. That being said, if you're already relatively lean, like a pretty low body fat, the scale's not gonna go down really. It will actually probably more stay the same and eventually start to climb a little bit. And this is where a lot of people can get confused. One of the posts that I appreciate on social media, but they've started to get on my nerves a little bit, are the posts where you have someone who they weigh X amount in one picture where they're clearly a higher body fat percentage, and then in another picture it says like they weigh the exact same amount but they're way less body fat. I like the general sentiment of this post because it shows you that how much you weigh, it doesn't really tell the whole story. The issue with this post is that it doesn't show how much time actually happened between these two pictures, and it doesn't show that there was a lot of weight fluctuation in between. And more often than not, very rarely is someone going to stay the exact same weight as they go from a very high body fat, almost lost the paper, as they go from a very high body fat to a much lower body fat. Usually they go through a cycle of, okay, so they started out here at a higher body fat, and then as they dieted down in a calorie deficit, they lost weight. And then when they went the other direction, they started to gain it back, and then they ended up being significantly leaner at was the original weight, but it didn't stay that way the whole time. And it's misleading. It's misleading, that type of a post, because then when someone just looks at that one before and after on social media, they assume that, okay, so like my weight shouldn't be going down. It's like, well, listen, if you're starting at a higher body fat percentage, your weight should be dropping, and then we can bring it back up. And so really what this boils down to is gaining weight while you're weight training is not a bad thing. Gaining weight in general is not a bad thing. You really just have to look at it from, number one, what is your goal? What is your starting point? And what are you doing what is your actual plan of action? So if your goal is to lose fat and you're at a higher body fat percentage, your weight should be dropping. If your goal is to lose fat and you're already pretty lean, like already at a relatively high level of leanness, then your weight will probably stay closer to the same of where it currently is, and over time it might actually increase very slowly, very, very, very slowly. Again, that doesn't mean there won't be fluctuations. There will be periods of time where it will go down as, like, maybe you say really focus on losing fat to get leaner, and then once you raise your calories a little bit, your weight will start to creep back up again. So I think even more important than necessarily just saying like gaining weight isn't a bad thing while you're weight training, or that it's going to happen, I think what's really important to remember is this isn't like a one-time loss and that's done, or like a one-time gain and it's done. This is all a process, and you go through phases. Sometimes you'll go through a phase of clear cutting and losing fat, and your weight will go down, and other times you'll go through a phase of more maintenance and maybe even slight bulking and gaining weight a little bit, and then over the course of 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, you might end up at the exact same weight, just a completely different body composition. And understanding that it's a process and there are multiple phases throughout all of this is the most important, because people really run into trouble when they think, okay, I'm just going to like stay exactly where I am right now and think it's just a single phase. It's not. It's multiple phases on multiple phases on multiple phases. So I hope that answered your question. Going on to the next one now. Let's see. That was Lindsay. Then we've got Marlene. Marlene said, are knee compression sleeves beneficial when squatting? It depends. Personally, I've never found any personal benefit. That being said, I know a lot of lifters who love them and they swear by them. For me, I've always been more of a minimalist. I'll squat barefoot. I'll squat in Timberland boots. I'll squat in whatever. I've always been a really big fan of just walking into a gym, shorts and t-shirt, and seeing what you can do. That's what I prefer. I've always really liked that idea of just being able to do whatever you can do at any point in time with whatever like clothes you have on your back. That being said, I know there are people who, if you have joint issues, like if your joints ache, knee sleeves and elbow sleeves can be very helpful. If you find yourself getting cold in the gym, like for whatever reason, some people maybe it's poor circulation, whatever it is, maybe your gym isn't as hot as it should be. The knee sleeves and the elbow sleeves can help keep you warmer, which can help you keep your joints more lubricated and help improve performance. And also there is something to be said for it. There's this little slight rebound out of the bottom when the knee sleeves crunch up and then boom, they expand out of the bottom. So like you squat down, stuff keeps blowing away. When you squat down in the bottom and your hips are flexing, your knees are flexing, you're squatting down, and then when you stand up, there's a little bit of slight release. It's not that much, especially compared to like general powerlifting gear with some poly material, but there is something to be said for you do get a little bit of pop out of the hole, and it might actually help increase your strength too. So worst comes to worst, give them a shot, and if they help, great, and if they don't, that's fine too. For me, I've just never really been that intrigued by them or seen that much of a performance benefit from them, but there's enough people who do swear by them that I'd say it's worth giving it a shot to see how it works for you. All right, let's see. Okay, Sam VPT. He said, I've heard, first of all, Sam, I see you commenting on all my stuff, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. Sam said, I've heard you say that you're very unorganized. So how do you and your business function so well? I'm very disorganized. Very, very, very disorganized. I guess that's relative. I wouldn't say I'm very, very, very disorganized. I'd say that I'm not the kind, I don't really have like spreadsheets on spreadsheets. I don't really have fancy systems in place. It's really more of like a, hey, I'm gonna throw shit at the wall, see how it sticks, and I know what has to get done, and I just get it done. And I think that's really the key to getting stuff done, and the whole functioning so well thing. I think it's worth noting that you don't know that I function so well, right? And I'm not saying I don't, but what I'm saying is what you see on social media, what you see me putting out is just, it's a small representation of my life as a whole. It doesn't show you actually what's going on. And I say this because it's very easy to look at what other people are doing and be like, oh wow, they must be doing so well, they're so organized, they've got it all figured out, but you don't know. And I do think I function well, and I do think that by and large I'm more organized than most, but I think that the reason I'm able to get so much done and function so well is because I just have a list of what needs to get done and I get it done. That's it. Like there's nothing else to it. There's no fancy system in place. There's no special trick. There's no like spreadsheet data or whatever, or like anything fancy that I do other than, hey, here's what has to get done. Let's do it. And that's it. I think most people fail not because of being disorganized, but because they just don't either do what needs to get done on a consistent, that's it. They don't do what needs to get done on a consistent basis. And it's not a lack of organization. It's usually a lack of patience and a lack of patience and a lack of, I think a lack of consistency stems from a lack of patience, where someone will do something for a day or a week or a month and then they don't see like the massive results that they want and they quit. Whereas if they kept doing it for 3 years, it would have been tremendous. So that's what I would say on that front. I function well because I just do what I need to do. And that's really it, right? I think it's worth noting that before my business really started to take off, I spent 3 years, literally 3 whole years, posting bare minimum 3 times a day, every day on Facebook, on Twitter, on Google+, on Clout, on Photocracy. I was writing a bare minimum of 1 article a week, every week. Each one was about 1,500 to 2,000 words. I did internships at some of the world's greatest gyms. I was like, it was just doing what had to get done. And I never just stopped doing it because it wasn't going fast enough. Like that never happened. It was, I'm just gonna keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, and slow and steady and slow and steady and slow and steady, until all of a sudden something big happened and people are like, oh my God, this person just blew up out of nowhere. It's like, okay, but if blowing up out of nowhere means 5.5 years of working every day, 7 days a week for hours and hours and hours a day. So I think that's where most people really don't function well, is when they don't do something consistently. And this leads into a whole topic of the value of, like, there's so many social media platforms. There's so many different things you can be spending your time on: Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, podcasts, Snapchat, whatever. There's so many things. I think there's a lot of value in choosing 1 or 2 and just going hard on them. Just going hard on that 1 or 2 and then building out from there after years or whatever it takes. But to answer the question of how do I function so well, I just know what I have to get done and I do it. You know, I mean, I have torn pieces of paper here with your questions on it. It's not like that organized, right? And they're on the back of a piece of paper with notes for a project I'm working on right now. Like, it's not organized, but it gets done. And that's really what I think matters most. So, you know what? I'm gonna go one more question. Wait, maybe I will. Let's see. Maybe I'll save this one. Austin Goodwin asked a good question. You know what? I'm gonna do another question. Austin Goodwin said, Austin, by the way, also comments on a lot of my shit. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Austin said, how did you find your voice, then turn that voice into success in the fitness world full of imitators and product sellers? Interesting question. And it's similar to the last one that Sam asked. How did you find your voice, then turn that voice into success in the fitness world full of imitators and product sellers? I sort of want to focus on the last part of it. In a world full of fitness, in a world full of imitators and product sellers. It's interesting that you included that, because that part of the equation never crosses my mind in terms of that should have no bearing on how you establish your voice. What other people are doing should have no bearing on you, ever. The imitators, the product sellers, like, it shouldn't influence it at all. In a world full of whatever, it doesn't matter. You finding your voice is separate from what other people are doing. And it's funny, if you go back and read my content from 2011, is when I really first started posting articles on a weekly basis and posting on Facebook and tweets and all that stuff. You go back and read my content from there, it's a lot of the same topics, but my voice is different. And my voice didn't change because of anybody in the industry, because of the imitators or product sellers. My voice changed because through coaching and through creating content, I realized, I learned how best to express myself and my views to the people who really needed it. And the mistake I was making, that you might be making now, is I was focusing too much on trying to impress other people in the fitness industry with my knowledge, rather than trying to help the people who really needed it. And so if you go back and look at my old content, it was way more advanced, way more complex, way more the terminology that I would use, the vocabulary that I would use, it was more for a crowd of people who were fitness professionals. And now it's Harry Potter and it's coffee and it's it's grundle. It's just normal talk while injecting good, helpful information within it, so everyday people who are not fitness professionals can understand it and practically apply it. And that was what? That was 2011. Wow, holy shit! It's June 2nd, 2011. Right now it's June 2nd, 2018. I started in June of 2011. It's, what is it? Holy shit! It's like 7 years, almost exactly 7 years ago from when I started. That's crazy. But point being, it's been 7 years of every single day writing probably a bare minimum of 1,000 words and trying to break through, trying to break through. And it was that practice. 7 years, 7 years. And not to mention, in the last year alone, it's been bare minimum 1 up to 3 posts a day every day on Instagram, 7 days a week. And those captions can easily take me 30 minutes to an hour plus to write. So it's constant repetition. It's the same thing that your clients would say, how do you bench press 225? How do you deadlift 500 pounds? Reps. You got to get your reps in. And stop worrying about what other lifters are doing, because other lifters don't fucking matter. What other people are lifting or what supplements they're taking doesn't matter. You got to get your reps in. That's how you find your voice. That's how you build yourself as not only as a business professional, but as someone who can actually help people on a large scale. Fuck what other people are doing. You do what you need to do to get better and to reach more people. You don't go in the gym and worry about what other people are lifting, at what other supplements people are taking, what they're eating for post-workout meal. You worry about what you're doing. And when you focus on that, that's when you're gonna win, and that's when you're gonna help more people. All right? Thank you, Austin, for asking that question. Love you guys. Have a wonderful day. Any questions, tweet them at me at SYATT Fitness on Twitter. Talk to you soon.